Hello traders, this is Alex with the Matrix program, formerly the stock Matrix program. It has ended. I'm going to talk about kind of doing some quick looking at silver. I know a lot of people are interested in it. Margins are 38 grand to trade futures. People think, oh, that's crazy, but you got to remember, man, as an ex-broker, your risk is the market. Silver moved 10 bucks in one day. I mean, that's 50 grand. So your margin has, or 20, I mean, it's a lot. I mean, you got to be appropriate for the risk margin in there. So the silver, gold, anything that flies around like that, I mean, to me, it's undervalued. The S&P has been at 25 grand now for 3 years, and it don't even hardly move compared to that silver right now. So I could see silver getting up there. It needs to go up to keep people from blowing up. If you're going to trade futures, you better have the coin. Now, that's not here nor there. I'm not trying to talk that, but that's part of the equation, right, when you look at the markets. Now, let's go into, I'm going to pull up some of these markets that have, silver's not the newcomer, right? It's not the first bull. We had orange juice, lumber. Now I couldn't get lumber up for some odd reason, but lumber was the first one to really sky and had a super bull. Orange juice was another one. Coffee's always been that whippy motion. Palladium was another one that had a pretty good activity. And then we'll look at the silver, trying to get a comparison, right, of what it can do. I'm doing some of the Gann stuff, everything kind of related to 360. So if I don't talk about it, 2880 is a multiple of 360 by 8. So 360 times 8 is 2880. And I couldn't get that exactly on here because I'm looking at a weekly or whatever it calculating up when I squish it down. So, and again, I'm doing Gann squares of the range. So the multiplication of that range. So like this box here obviously is the bottom part of the range. Here's double, triple, quad. Well, here is double, triple. So we got basically a 1 by 3 or 3 by 1 speed from the low to this high. And you can see I drew in some of these lines, which actually ended up kind of working a little bit. Again, I'm not trying to advocate anything, but the potential, right? So we know it went 3 times up, multiple of 3 of the range. And from the low, it was 50 bucks, whatever it was, 70 bucks, and it went to 550. Well, let me just do, hang on, 70 times 2, 144 times 2, 288 times 2, 576. So it went up a factor of 600% from this low. So again, it isn't just silver that does this. People got to get their head out of their apple. Okay, so we know it goes up on orange juice, went up 3 times of this range, and 6 times from the actual low. So the squaring of the low at the actual price, 72, I'm just rounded. So again, it got you up here into the highs. Now the other thing you want to look at is once the highs were in, what did it do? Well, it dropped about 87%. So it broke back all the way of that range, cleared out everything, just, in the speed of the decline, right? It took 3 years to make the bull up and a year to bust it. So that's pretty simple characteristics of a bull, a frothing bull to a collapsing bear. So that's what we're looking at. Again, these are fractions of that, or multiples of the 360 cycle in calendar days, right? Now the bars are messed up because, again, it's a weekly or whatever, bi-weekly, whatever it's calculating. I'm more interested in the calendar days. So that we know that worked. The mathematical trend lines off of that worked and projected the highs pretty good. Now let's move on to coffee. It's had several pops and smashes along the way. I didn't take the bull high that we had in the 70s or 90s. But again, this is, now this one's a little different. I took this high. This is the 50% level of that. So this is 1 square of the range. This is 2 square of the range. And, coward. Hang on, sorry. Damn it. This is the 3rd square, right? So again, it went up 2.5 times of the range. So that's pretty interesting to me. And you can, the actual low was something down here, looks like about 57.50. So, I'm trying to do this quick, frickers. 57, let's just call it 55. Times 2, what? 52 times 2 times 2 times 2. So it is about, again, a factor of 6-ish, right? Again, I'm not trying to be precise here. Just so you understand it, again, it went up about the same 6-fold from the low to the high and broke back. Well, we haven't broke back on this one yet. So again, this one's either still on its upward path or it could, this was definitely a smasher. Let me just see what this break was. Just so you understand the potential here, right? Let's go from the lows. It looks like there's 50%, so it probably dropped 20%, or excuse me, 80% off that move. So again, a serious break, and it stayed down there for quite a length of time. All right, now let's move on to Palladium. This one was our most recent metal one, and again, we still got 2880 is our. These are the ranges of 2880. So again, from high to low to kind of the breaking out area, and then it also projected this high, but not the high because it had one more poke. It had 3 pokes up here, 1, 2, 3, and then that was it. Poof, drops, again over 80% down to this low that we just had, and now we've rallied 50% back already. So, and why gold and silver making new all-time highs, right? But this one started it all, and again from its low, which was 151. Okay, 151 times 2 times 2 times 2. That's 12. Yeah, see, that one went up even a lot more. Times 2, 24. Got up to 3 grand times 2. 4,800 would have been an even multiple. So it went up 2, 4, 6, 8, 10-fold, right? So again, you're looking at silver going, oh, it can't go up any higher. Well, Palladium just did it. I mean, 10-fold from the low. So again, never say never. You look for the action that says it's over. This third high, of course, I like sets of threes. 3, here's a set of 3, right? 1, 2, 3. This high was in that set of 3. And actually the percentage was this low. Now here's the new square over, right? So Palladium was the last one to do it. Now let's go to, here is January silver chart. Now this is just January, weekly nearby, which doesn't have all the data. So let's now, again, that's what it looks like. Again, you can see we've doubled that range, right? Now let's go to the cash silver chart that I worked on. Again, here was your first bull mark in the 80s, the Hunt brothers, right? This high did not take that out. It's hard to see some of this because I got lines drawn in here. But this is the this whole green square. It's a Gann square, a quadrant, right? And this is 100%. This is 50%. This is 25%, right? So you got 25, 50 here. Here's 50, 50. You can see I got the ones drawn in to make sure you can see that. So this was 25%, and we've doubled the range, and silver didn't quite get there yet. So we've doubled this range almost. So now, is it over? I don't know. It might be. I'm not going to say it is or isn't. I don't really care, right? I'm just trying to give you an idea of the potentiality here. We know that it tends to have sets of threes. Let's look at the low. I'm just going to get a rough one. I don't care if it's exact. Let's just say 360 since we like that number. 3.60 times 3.60 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times, there's 57 that we plowed through, times 2, 115, which we haven't got there yet. So we're looking at 2, 4, 6 times, 8 times to get to 115. So we're already 6 multiple. Again, that's what we've had in those other ones, right? So you got to be a little careful. Again, you don't know what the high could be. Now it could go through this. I think the potential high in my rough mind, again, there's a mathematical reason as well, but this 140 target up against the backside of this 1-to-1, and that would be 3 sets, right, of this squaring of the range, right? 3 of them, and we look back, that's what the other ones did. So that would be 140, and if it happens to fall in this time, which is again the 75% of this square range, is January into December of 2026. So it's definitely in the realm. Now that does, again, it could break back here, up, down, get all wild. You don't know the action. I doubt if it's going to square out the range, but it could. Again, we've got the projection there for a reason. 140 is kind of my thought, and 115 obviously is a target based on the math from the low. So now let's look at this recent low. This recent low was 1172, we'll call it. Again, I'm not trying to be precise. 1172 times 2 times 2. So that's pretty good, right? 46 was kind of near that old high, times 2, and 93, that was our high today, or this week. Let me, dang it. Every time I dick with this, it takes forever, sorry. You're dealing with such a squished out. 93.52 shows the high on the cash silver chart. I don't know what the futures, well, we do have January here, let me see. January high was 93.75. We said 93.76, right? So again, and then it closed at 88. So you got to be a little careful. Now, one thing, if you don't know how the silver futures trade, they actually settle the futures at 12:30, right, Central Time. So, and then the Globex trades till 4. So a lot of these closes seem like there's gaps. Well, it's because they close at 12:30 and the silver kept going up through till 4 o'clock. It opens at 5 on the new session, new day, and all of a sudden it looks like a gap. So you got to be careful when you look through the charts how that is. Um, I wish they wouldn't do that. I don't know why they do that. Again, they add another layer of confusion, which is pretty typical. So you can see this even in the January, we kind of had this projected. So again, 93.76. We'll see. It's close enough to this fat doubling of this range, right? That you got to be careful. At least you could get, it could break back to 70, 60, still be bullish. Break back to this old high of 50 and still be bullish. So, and still could go up and still could meet our target, up there at 140 by January. It's a long time away, right? So, when you're trading on these violent markets, you must use a little bit of logic. Options are non-existent right now because of the volatility. I mean, unless you're selling options, and you got to have money. If you're trading selling options, you got to trade it like you're short, or have the actual silver. That's the only way you sell options, in my opinion. Let's say you have 50,000 ounces in your safe, and you don't want to get out, but yet you want to take advantage of it. You got to be willing to have deliveries. So you sell 20,000 ounces. Half of your, almost half, let's say you have 40 ounces, sell half of it, so you sell 4 contracts of calls, and you collect the money, right? And you got to be willing to get rid of it, though. So, and actually delivery is probably quite a process nowadays. Now, they're trying to keep people out because of the scare, right? And how it works is if your broker has to cover your losses if you don't, right? And so the CME has several follow-throughs. If you don't pay, the customer don't pay, the broker pays. If the broker don't have that kind of money, then the clearing firm pays, right? And if the clearing firm don't have that money, then the CME or COMEX has to pay, right? So the COMEX has their ass covered. Usually the clearing firm, like R.J. O'Brien or whoever, right, is the fall guy if the broker goes toast because the customer stuck him with something that he couldn't control. Again, it's moving around 10 grand or 50, sometimes 50 grand a day, right? So if you really screw up, it could be pretty catastrophic. So anyway, now let's assume, let's do a couple assumptions. Trying to get this, dang it, let me go back. Okay, now let's assume that either this first one is a high. All right, then let's put it up there next week or two. And the breakback, we know, right, is down. The range is down here, or let's call it 20%, somewhere in here. We'll call it $30. So that is where it'll break back to from if this is a high, or this level up here. It doesn't really matter. It'll be close enough either way, right? Now, we know also, right, that it breaks fast. So if it took 2 years to go up, it'll take 1 year to break. If it only took 1.5 years to go up, it could take 3 months to go back. So again, you got to understand that the speed of decline is equivalent to the velocity. I mean, I could get complex here, but break back to halfway is $53, and we know that every one of these breaks went further than that, right? We know that they ended up down here. Now, if by chance we have a bull pop up to here, right? This 141-ish area, 42, whatever it is, we'll call it 140, and we're taking that range. Now, then we could break back to $40, which makes sense to me. I think $40, and if this high is real and we get there quickly. Now, I don't have to be on this date, right? It could be next week. I mean, it could fly. Margins are 40 grand, are going to go to 50. I mean, they got to. It's going to cause some chaos. China's playing games with the silver cash. We got plenty of silver out there, right? I think. I mean, they haven't shut down printing silver dollars yet. So we know we got supply. So a lot of the stuff you hear on the internet is bullshit. Again, use the 90% rule. 90% is crap. You can glean about maybe 10% off of some of these websites. Other than that, it's all fake. I mean, half the stuff is AI driven. The little Asian guy, whatever. I think I had a video on him, and he was talking about this and that. Now, again, if you're creating an AI guy, Asian guy, that's always bullish, he'll pull out all the bullish data. If you have a bearish AI guy, you can pull out all the bearish data. So again, China created a bunch of AI platforms talking about how bullish silver is going to go. Well, because they have a motive, right? They're trying to corner the silver market. Now, it's not illegal because they're doing it through the cash, similar to what the Oracle of Omaha did back in 90s and in 2000. They cornered the silver market, but on the cash. And then he spread the news out that he had 30% of the cash silver, and the market went up. And then he sold the futures and hedged, right? So again, it makes sense uh, for that play, and but people got to realize that all things come to an end. Orange juice was the most bullish thing I've ever seen, and now it's 80% down. Palladium. I sold cash Palladium at 3 grand. I bought it for 600. Oh, why'd you get out of your metals? I go, because it's going to go back down. Oh, and I can guarantee it. Now, when I don't know, and I don't know exact prices. I mean, I could sit there and give you some mathematical bullshit, but all we know is that the market will break again, and when it does break, we know it's going to be severe. That's the history. We looked at all the bull markets in the recent past. Now, I could go to some stock ones and probably do the same thing, right? So now the stock market's a little different animal because they're protected by these big conglomerates. The BlackRocks and the bunch. There's 3 or 4 big dogs, State Street and whatnot. I mean, they all protect themselves. Now, if they ever got in trouble, whoever short the silver, again, somebody short the silver, and I don't know if they're not. They might be covered though, right? You're hearing the news out there. Oh, J.P. Morgan short silver. Well, they probably are in COMEX, but they're probably long twice as many in the Hang Seng or the Hong Kong. I mean, you don't know what they're in. They could be covered 10 ways to Sunday. Or they could own the cash. I mean, you don't know what they have for sure. Now, they're supposed to let you know, but, um, their fourth cousin twice removed owns, 50 contracts. Made, $100 million on the futures. So you just don't know for sure. But all we know right now is the silver's halfway back, doubled its range. So, and we know that it also, from that low, the recent low of 1172, we're 246. So we know that 6 times multiple, 600%, sixfold from that low was also the orange juice high, was also the coffee high. So we know that that's not. It's pretty characteristic that this area is pretty important, and yeah, but that doesn't mean we can't jerk around and go up, poke it out. You look at um, um, Palladium, which was its sister. We had 3 freaking massive highs here, and these are big swings. Palladium margins were 20 grand also, maybe even more, 25. So it wasn't uncharacteristic to have high margins because it's moving that much. It had 10 times multiple of that, right? So, but you can see this, it could have this kind of high, or it could be just a straight freaking down, and all the bulls will get screwed. Maybe it's going to go to 400, like some of these people are talking. I don't know. I don't care. Now, I won't be involved, but, if you're a collector of silver, stacker, what people call yourselves, if that's what you do, you're never going to sell, then I don't understand the purpose of it. I guess that's not my mentality. So I'm not into stacking because if it goes up, I get out. I mean, I sold my silver though already, right? So I'm the stooge. I sold it at $60 and I bought it at freaking 8, 10. I made 6, 7, 8 times on money, and now it's doubled since I got out. Now, not quite, but you can see the whole point of it is, it doesn't make sense in my mind. Now, again, 140 is like the max to me that it could go up. And the speed, and then plus you got to find a market to use. Is there going to be any place to sell silver? I mean, just think if you're a cash guy, a pawnbroker that buys silver gold. Well, Jesus, you can't do a 6% or 10, 20%. There's no way. I mean, it's moving $10 in one day. I mean, you come in when selling some silver at noon, the poor broker could be out a lot of money by the close of business, right? So the spread between the buyer and the seller, the bid and the offer between the pawnbroker and somebody that's trying to sell them silver is going to be quite wide. It has to be. I think the ones on the internet are quite wide right now, 60, 90 or something like, or no, it's probably 60, 100 or something like that. Again, there's a reason for that because again, the risk is so high. So if you got to sell silver, what are you going to do? Sell it on eBay? Maybe, of course you got to be a specific seller to sell it on eBay even. If you got large quantity, I got a lot of customers with, 100 ounces, or excuse me, 100,000 ounces of silver laying around. They've been long since the 70s, for Christ's sakes. They've been buying forever, and they never get out when it went to 50, and it went to 8, 10 back there. They just kept buying because they have so much money they don't need to worry about it, right? Those type of guys, again, if they're farmers and they can buy farm ground and sell their silver, guess what they're going to do? In a heartbeat, they're going to sell their silver to buy land. Land is they're a farmer. That's what they do. They farm. The silver is just a backup. But if they can buy ground for silver, they'll trade that in. It's no different than if you had a bunch of silver and had no gold. Well, maybe it's time to sell silver and roll it into some gold. A lot of that probably going on right now. And you can do that with anything. I want to check one other market out here. Hang on just a second. I wanted to pull up Bitcoin. Bitcoin, I know it's not quite futures market, but kind of is, I guess. It's commodity. Now this is, again, I used a multiple of 360, half the size I did the other ones because it's a little newer market. And you can see from high to high was that, again, it's 1440, what is a factor of 6, I guess. 360, let me see. Yeah, factor 4, right? The 360 times 4 is 1440, right? Half of the other one that we looked at in all the other examples. Still makes sense. Now you can see that this is, I took this range, right? So this whole box is one range. This is 50%. So we have gone up double. Now really you need to go back prior to and start it from here. I didn't have time. I just quickly threw this together. But you can see that here is the double, here is the triple. We're getting into the other range. Let's see if I can get it pulled down here. So you can see this is the first range, second range, which we're in, actually we're in, and then now we're into, time-wise, we're into this range. Now you can see that this last break was pretty significant, and I kind of drew in the possibilities, right, from highs to low. So these are the data points of time that we could go down into, again, first of the year, which makes sense based on that silver we just looked at. Now this high was exact. So from high to high to high was a precise, I don't know, I shouldn't say precise. I'm not trying to be precise. Just on a quick rough, the 1440 was a cycle that worked from high to high to high. Now you could try to run it off lows and do all that, or break it in half, 720, and see if these were, looks like that was kind of a low. That wasn't anything. So definitely possibility, right? And here is your trend line off the highs that are parallel. So, and they also worked. Here's your parallel from high to high, hit that one, and then you run it off these lows. That speed line was still correct. You run it off these lows, hit this high. This speed was also in the realm. We hit this low as well. So, and hit this low. So again, these are pretty valid points in time. But again, Bitcoin's one of those that people are pretty frothing bullish. But again, I'll contend like I do with silver, with soybeans, I don't give a shit. If the market runs out, is it going up or down? If Bitcoin, as an example, is out of supply and the miners don't have anything to mine, is it going up or is it going to go down? I contend it cannot go up anymore. Now, it might not go down much. And maybe that's that plateau. Maybe we'll be in this huge range for, 10 years, right? I mean, you don't know. Same with silver. If silver, again, I don't know the actual fundamentals because the internet's so fake. If we're out of actual silver, if we are, is it going up or is it going to go down? I contend the highs are probably within a year of being it, or maybe a few months, right? Because again, there's no supply left to be bullish on. And then you start looking at the data. Oh, the exports are down on silver. Well, because we were out. No shit. Same way it happens in soybeans. When you have a drought and you run out and China buys all the supply up. Every time the most bullish numbers are the high of the market. And I contend that that's because we're out of that product. It happens every freaking time. Orange juice, the most bullish thing that happened on orange juice in that era when we had the bull last year was some little insect that affected the orange juice, and a lot of the trees died. And that was the high. It dropped 70 freaking percent. Again, it happens every time. And the low is just the opposite, right? You have all this supply. It's a doomsday. Oh, we got so much silver laying around. We're never going to go back up. Or we have so much soybeans around. It's going to stay here. Now, the bases are wider and the highs are quicker. True. And you got to understand that. Bitcoin might not be. I mean, it might be a whole different fundamental, or silver. But you look at the past, and usually the highs tell you that once the highs are in, it's freaking over. And the last man standing doesn't get the chair and usually holds the bag. And it can move so fast. So again, we had $10 swings in a day. So that means you could go down $50 in a week? Well, yeah. Not that it will, but I'm just saying it had a $10 range in one freaking day on silver. So use your brain a little bit and understand some things. Now, if you're knowledgeable in the cash, which I am not, cash silver or cash Bitcoin, these people that have been preaching Bitcoin forever wrote all these breaks down 70 fucking percent. How smart is that? That's like all these markets, Intel or Microsoft, or all of them got hammered, 4 or 5 times, dropped 60 to 70%, a handful of times throughout their life cycle. It happens. I mean, natural gas right now is going through one of those blowout cycles right now because of the warmth and anyway, I'm getting off track here a little bit. But the silver is definitely one that people have stood up and took notice. Cattle had their bull also. Another commodity that kind of had a pretty good ride. Again, just from its low. We probably doubled in value, and maybe a lot more than that, if you look at it from a cash like we did with the other charts. All right, I'm going to hang up here. I know I've kind of rambled, but it's kind of important, right? This silver market, here's the silver March. Um, Again, I contend that, again, I'm not knowledgeable in supply and demand either. I'm not like I was with soybeans. Soybeans was my specialty, but, spreads and options in particular. But, silver is a different animal. I don't, if we're out though, if we are out, I contend the highs are pretty close to being in. Maybe we're not out yet. Maybe we're got 20% left in the tank of supply, and that's a whole different deal. I know we have plenty of gold and silver laying around. They're still producing coins, for Christ's sakes. They're a little late, okay, but they're still producing coins. That'd be, if we were out, gold and silver coins would be the last thing that you'd be see selling on the internet, for Christ's sakes. I just seen an ad again for the new 2026 silver dollar eagles or whatever. It's like, okay, I mean, they were pretty expensive for a box of them, $3,000 or $3,500, but you can still buy them. Uh, so okay, I'm going to sign off. Everyone have a great rest of your week and hang on to your hat.